The gunshot echoed across the dusty streets of Dry Creek, Colorado, as the summer heat of 1876 bore down mercilessly on the small frontier town. Beau Blackwood wiped the sweat from his brow, pushing back his worn leather hat as he watched the commotion unfold at the edge of town. A crowd had gathered around a wooden platform where a man in a dirty suit was auctioning off what looked like farm equipment, livestock, and to Beau's disgust people. $2. I'm asking for $2 for this one, the auctioneer's voice carried across the square. Young girl, bit scrawny but got some life in her yet. Good for housework, cooking, whatever you need. Beau's jaw tightened. The war had ended over a decade ago, but out here in the territories, far from federal oversight, such illegal sales still happened, disguised as indentured servitude contracts. He pushed through the crowd, his spurs jingling with each step. The girl on the platform couldn't have been much older than 20, her dress tattered, her face gaunt with hunger. Despite her condition, there was a defiance in her eyes that caught Beau's attention. Nobody. The auctioneer looked around. Come on, gentlemen, she ain't much to look at now, but feed her up a bit and you'll have yourself a fine worker. $2, Beau called out, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. He'd come to town to sell cattle, not to buy a person, but something about the girl's dignity in the face of such humiliation moved him. The auctioneer grinned, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Sold to the cowboy with the black hat. Beau stepped forward, passing $2 silver to the man. He felt sick doing it, participating in something he found morally reprehensible, but he knew what happened to those who went unsold. The girl looked at him warily as he approached the platform. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get you out of here. She followed him wordlessly, her steps unsteady. Only when they were clear of the crowd did she speak. Thank you, Beau, she whispered. He stopped so abruptly that he nearly stumbled. His hat slipped from his fingers, landing in the dust at his feet. Slowly he turned to face her, his heart pounding against his ribs. How do you know my name? He asked, studying her face more carefully. There was something familiar in those green eyes, something that tugged at memories long buried. The girl managed a weak smile. You really don't recognize me. It's me, Eliza Kinsley. Beau's world seemed to tilt on its axis. Eliza Kinsley. The name brought a flood of memories, a young girl with braided hair running through wildflower fields, laughing as they raced their horses across open plains, sitting beside him on the fence watching summer sunsets back in Missouri. Eliza, he breathed, scarcely believing it. But how? Your family moved east before the war. I thought life took some unexpected turns, she said, her voice fragile but her gaze steady. Father lost everything in a bad investment. Then the consumption took both my parents 2 winters ago. I've been trying to make my way back west ever since. Beau bent to retrieve his hat, dusting it off more to buy himself time than out of any real concern for the dirt. Eliza Kinsley. His childhood friend, his first love. The girl who'd kissed him behind her father's barn the day before her family packed up their wagon and headed east, promising to write letters that never came. You need food, he said finally, pushing aside the storm of questions. And rest. My ranch is a half-day's ride from here. Can you manage that? Eliza nodded, though Beau could see the exhaustion written in every line of her body. I've managed worse. He led her to the general store, buying bread, cheese, and dried beef that she ate in small, careful bites as they sat on a bench outside. While she ate, Beau purchased a simple dress, a coat for the cool evenings, and a sturdy pair of boots to replace her worn-out shoes. You don't have to do all this, she protested. I'm not leaving you in those rags, he replied. Besides, it gets cold up in the foothills where my place is. Eliza finished her small meal and changed in the back room of the store. When she emerged, the new dress hanging loose on her thin frame, Beau felt another pang of memory. Even after all these years, even in her current state, she was beautiful. They rode out of town on Beau's horse, Eliza seated behind him, her arms tentatively wrapped around his waist. As they left Dry Creek behind, Beau could feel the tension gradually leaving her body. "How did you end up on that auction block?" he asked after they'd been riding for an hour. Eliza's fingers tightened slightly against his coat. "I was working in a restaurant in Denver. The owner said I owed him money for room and board, more than I could ever repay on the wages he was giving me. He sold my debt to a man who trades in such things." Her voice grew bitter. "It's a common enough scheme." "That's illegal," Beau said, anger flaring. "So is half of what happens out here," Eliza replied wearily. "The law only matters if someone's willing to enforce it." They rode in silence for a while, the rhythmic sound of hoofbeats and the occasional call of a hawk the only sounds breaking the vastness of the Colorado wilderness. The sun was beginning its descent when Beau finally spoke again. "I looked for you," he said quietly. "After the war. I rode all the way to Springfield, but your family had moved on. Nobody knew where. Father was always chasing the next opportunity," Eliza said. "We never stayed anywhere long after leaving Missouri. I wanted to write to you, but what? But Father forbade it. He said you were just a ranch hand's son, that I needed to set my sights higher." She rested her forehead against his back. "I was young and afraid to disobey him. By the time I found my courage, we'd moved 3 more times and I had no idea how to find you." Beau absorbed this, feeling old wounds reopening and strangely beginning to heal at the same time. "Life's full of strange turns," he said finally. "Who would have thought we'd meet again like this?" "When I saw you in that crowd," Eliza said, "I thought I was dreaming, after everything. To find you there, of all places." As the sun dipped lower, the silhouette of Beau's ranch appeared on the horizon, a modest main house, a barn, and several outbuildings nestled against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains. A thin spiral of smoke rose from the chimney. "That's Jenkins," Beau explained, following her gaze. "My foreman, good man, takes care of things when I'm away on business." "It's beautiful," Eliza said. "You've done well for yourself." Beau felt a hint of pride at her words. "Started with nothing but 100 acres and a dozen head of cattle. Now I've got 800 acres and 300 head. It's not the biggest spread in Colorado, but it's mine." As they approached the ranch, a grizzled man in his 50s emerged from the barn, raising a hand in greeting. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Eliza, but he merely tipped his hat. "Welcome back, boss," he called. "Didn't expect you till tomorrow." "Change of plans, Jenkins," Beau replied, dismounting and helping Eliza down. "This is Miss Eliza Kinsley, an old friend from back east. She'll be staying with us for a while." Jenkins nodded respectfully toward Eliza. "Madam, I'll have Mrs. Morley prepare the guest room." "Thank you," Eliza said, her voice small but dignified. "Mrs. Morley, the housekeeper, was a bustling woman with a no-nonsense attitude that softened considerably when she saw Eliza's condition. Within an hour, she had drawn a hot bath, laid out fresh linens, and prepared a hearty stew that filled the house with savory aromas. After dinner, Beau sat with Eliza on the porch, watching as the last colors of sunset faded from the sky. Stars began to appear, brighter and more numerous than they ever seemed in town. "I still can't believe you're here," Beau said, breaking the comfortable silence. "When I saw you on that platform, I was so ashamed," Eliza admitted, her hands twisting in her lap, "to have you see me like that after all these years." Beau shook his head firmly. "There's no shame in surviving, Eliza, none at all." She looked at him then, really looked at him, taking in the changes the years had brought. The boy she'd known had become a man taller, broader, with lines at the corners of his eyes and a certain hardness that hadn't been there before. But his eyes were the same deep blue, honest and direct. "The war?" she asked gently, seeing old pain reflected there. Beau nodded. "Fought for 3 years, saw things no man should see." He looked down at his hands. "Came back to find my pa had died while I was gone. Heart gave out, they said." "I'm sorry," Eliza whispered. "It was a long time ago." Beau straightened, setting aside old ghosts. "What matters is now. You're safe here, Eliza. You can stay as long as you need to get back on your feet." "I don't want to be a burden." "You could never be that." Their eyes met and something passed between them, an echo of what had been and a whisper of what might be. Never that. The days slipped into a routine. Under Mrs. Morley's careful feeding, Eliza's strength returned. Her cheeks filled out and the haunted look in her eyes began to fade. She insisted on helping around the ranch, taking over some of the cooking and learning about the daily operations from Jenkins, who proved to be a patient teacher. Beau found himself watching her more often than he cared to admit, the way the sunlight caught in her hair as she hung laundry, how she laughed at Jenkins' dry humor, the thoughtful expression she wore while reading one of the books from Beau's modest library. One evening, about 3 weeks after her arrival, Beau returned from checking the north pasture to find Eliza sitting at his mother's old piano, her fingers moving hesitantly over the keys. "I didn't know you played," he said, hanging his hat on the peg by the door. Eliza smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I had lessons as a girl. I'm terribly out of practice." "It sounds nice," Beau said, sitting beside her on the bench. "My mother used to play that same song, Beautiful Dreamer," Eliza nodded. "I remember your mother playing it when we would visit. She had such gentle hands." The memory hung between them, sweet and bittersweet. On impulse, Beau reached out and covered her hand with his own. Her fingers were cool beneath his calloused palm. "Dance with me," he asked, surprising himself as much as her. Eliza's eyes widened. "There's no music. We'll make our own," Beau said, standing and pulling her gently to her feet. In the soft lamplight of the parlor, they moved together, finding a rhythm that seemed to come from memory itself. Beau hummed the melody of Beautiful Dreamer as they turned slowly across the worn rug. Eliza's hand felt small in his, her other resting lightly on his shoulder. He could smell the lavender soap she'd used, could feel the warmth of her through the fabric of her dress. "I never forgot you," he said, the words tumbling out before he could think better of them. "All these years, I never forgot." Eliza's steps faltered and she looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. "Nor I you," she whispered, "even when I should have, even when it would have been easier." They had stopped dancing, standing still in the center of the room, the moment stretching between them like a thread of gold. Beau's heart hammered in his chest as he slowly lowered his head. Her lips were soft against his, hesitant at first, then responding with a warmth that sent heat coursing through his veins. When they broke apart, Eliza's cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright. "Beau," she began, then stopped, seeming at a loss for words. "I know it's too soon," he said quickly. "You've been through so much. I shouldn't have known," she interrupted, pressing her fingers to his lips. "It's not too soon. It's been 15 years in the making." They might have kissed again, but a sharp knock at the door broke the moment. Jenkins stood there, his expression apologetic but urgent. "Riders coming, boss, 6 of them, moving fast." Beau's expression hardened. "Get the rifle, Jenkins. Eliza, stay inside." He moved to the window, peering out into the gathering darkness. 6 riders approached the main house, their horses kicking up dust in the yard. Even in the dim light, Beau could see they were rough-looking men, the kind who brought trouble wherever they went. "That's him," Eliza gasped, joining Beau at the window despite his instructions. "The man who bought my debt in Denver. Samuel Reeves." Beau's jaw tightened. "Stay back, Eliza." He stepped onto the porch as the riders pulled up, their horses snorting and stamping. The man in front was expensively dressed, with a carefully trimmed beard and cold eyes. "Evening," Beau said calmly, though his hand rested near the revolver at his hip. "Something I can help you with." "I believe you have something that belongs to me," the man, Reeves said smoothly. "A young woman, dark hair, green eyes. I have a legal contract of indenture." "There's no legal indenture in the United States anymore," Beau replied. "Not since the 13th Amendment." Reeves smiled thinly. "This is a labor contract, nothing more. The young lady agreed to work for me in exchange for settling her debts. Ask her yourself." "Under duress and false pretenses," Eliza's voice came from behind Beau as she stepped onto the porch. Her chin was raised, her eyes flashing with anger. "You lied about the amount I owed and the terms of repayment. Be that as it may," Reeves said, his smile never wavering. "We have an agreement. I've come to collect what's mine." "She's not yours," Beau said, his voice dangerously quiet. "She's not anyone's. She's staying here under my protection." One of Reeves' men, a burly fellow with a scar across his cheek, spat tobacco juice onto the dirt. "Boss paid good money for that girl's contract. $2 ain't gonna cover it." "I'll pay whatever legitimate debt she owes," Beau offered, though he knew it was futile. Men like Reeves didn't operate on legitimate terms. "The debt is now $500, Reeves said with a smirk. "Plus interest." "That's robbery," Beau snapped. "That's business," Reeves countered. "Now, are you going to hand over the girl, or do we need to make this difficult?" The tension stretched between them, tight as a fiddle string. Beau was acutely aware of Eliza behind him, of Jenkins in the doorway with the rifle, of the 6 men facing them with hands hovering near their weapons. "I suggest you leave," Beau said finally. "And don't come back," Reeves sighed as if disappointed. "I was hoping to resolve this amicably." "Very well," he nodded to his men. "Take her, kill anyone who interferes." Everything happened at once. Reeves' men went for their guns. Beau drew and fired in one smooth motion, hitting the scarred man in the shoulder. Jenkins' rifle cracked, and another man fell from his horse with a cry. Eliza screamed as a bullet splintered the porch railing inches from her head. "Get inside," Beau shouted, pushing her toward the door as he fired again. The gunfight was brief but violent. When it ended, 2 of Reeves' men lay dead in the yard, another was wounded, and Reeves himself was on his knees, a bullet in his thigh, his gun kicked away. Beau approached him, his revolver steady. "Like I said, she's staying here." Reeves glared up at him, his composure finally broken. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, Cowboy. I have friends in Denver, important friends." "So do I," Beau replied, "including Judge Wilson, who'd be mighty interested to hear about your business practices. Now, you and your men are going to ride out of here. If I ever see your face again, I won't aim for the leg." Reeves' remaining men helped him onto his horse, and the wounded collected their dead. As they rode away, Reeves turned in his saddle. "This isn't over," he called back. Beau watched until they disappeared into the darkness before turning to find Eliza standing in the doorway, her face pale but composed. "Are you hurt?" she asked, her eyes scanning him for injuries. "Not a scratch," he assured her, coming up the steps to take her hands in his. "But we need to talk about what happens next. Reeves was right about one thing: this isn't over." Inside, Mrs. Morley fussed over them, insisting on making tea and checking them both for injuries despite their assurances. Jenkins stood guard outside, watching for any sign of Reeves' return. "I should leave," Eliza said once they were alone in the parlor. "I've brought nothing but trouble to your door." "Running won't solve anything," Beau replied. "Reeves will just find someone else to exploit. No, we need to end this properly." "How?" "We ride to Denver tomorrow. Talk to Judge Wilson, make a formal complaint against Reeves. The judge is a good man, and he has no patience for those who try to bring back slavery under another name." Eliza looked doubtful. "Will that be enough? Men like Reeves have money influence." "So do honest men," Beau said firmly. "It's time someone stood up to him." They set out for Denver at first light, Beau, Eliza, and Jenkins riding together, while Mrs. Morley stayed behind with one of the ranch hands for protection. The journey took 2 days, during which they stayed alert for any sign of Reeves or his men, but the trail remained clear. Denver had grown since Beau's last visit, the city expanding rapidly with the influx of silver money. The streets were busy with wagons, horses, and people going about their business. They found lodging at a respectable hotel, where Beau insisted on separate rooms for propriety's sake, though the longing looks between them spoke of deeper feelings than either was ready to voice. Judge Wilson received them in his chambers the following morning, a stern-faced man with a thick white beard and shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "So," he said after hearing their story, "Reeves is still at his old tricks, is he?" "I've had suspicions about that man for years, but never enough evidence to act on." Will Miss Kinsley's testimony be enough? Beau asked. The judge considered. Combined with the attack on your ranch, yes, but I'd like more. Are there others who might come forward? Other young women caught in similar schemes. Eliza nodded slowly. There was another girl at the restaurant, Mary, and I've heard of others. If I could talk to them. It would be dangerous, Beau warned. Everything worth doing is, Eliza replied with a quiet determination that made Beau's heart swell with pride. Over the next 3 days, Eliza, with Beau always nearby for protection, sought out other victims of Reeves' schemes. One by one, they found them women working in laundries, restaurants, and houses of ill repute, all trapped in a cycle of debt they could never repay. Some were too afraid to speak out, but others, seeing Eliza's courage, agreed to testify. On the 4th day, as they were returning to their hotel, Beau spotted 2 of Reeves' men watching from across the street. He hurried Eliza inside, his hand on his gun. "They know what we're doing," he said grimly. "Then we need to move faster," Eliza replied, her face set with determination. "We have enough witnesses now. It's time to go back to the judge." That night, as they prepared to meet with Judge Wilson the following morning, a knock came at Eliza's hotel room door. Beau, who had been discussing their plans with her, drew his revolver and motioned for her to stay back. "Who is it?" he called. "Telegram for Miss Kinsley," came the reply. Beau opened the door cautiously to find a young boy in a Western Union cap. He accepted the telegram, gave the boy a coin, and closed the door before handing the paper to Eliza. She opened it with trembling fingers, then gasped. "It's from Mary. Reeves has her. He says if I don't come to the old warehouse on Blake Street by midnight alone, he'll kill her." "It's a trap," Beau said immediately. "Of course it is," Eliza agreed, "but I can't let Mary die because of me. You're not going alone. If I don't, Mary dies." Beau paced the room, his mind racing. "We need help. Jenkins, the sheriff, maybe some of those women who agreed to testify." "There's no time to gather everyone," Eliza argued. "Midnight is only 2 hours away." "Then we work with what we have," Beau said determinedly. "I have a plan." The warehouse on Blake Street was dark and seemingly abandoned when Eliza approached it at midnight. She walked slowly, her steps echoing on the cobblestones, a shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders despite the summer warmth. "I'm here, Reeves," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. "Let Mary go." A lantern flared to life inside the warehouse, illuminating the open doorway. "Come inside, Miss Kinsley," Reeves' voice called. "Alone." Eliza took a deep breath and stepped into the warehouse. Reeves sat in a chair, his injured legs stretched out before him, a cane resting against his knee. Mary was beside him, bound to a chair, a gag in her mouth and terror in her eyes. "That's far enough," Reeves said when Eliza had taken a few steps. "You've caused me a great deal of trouble, Miss Kinsley." "The trouble was of your own making," Eliza replied. "Enslaving women, lying about debts, did you think no one would ever stand against you?" Reeves smiled coldly. "Many have tried, none have succeeded." He snapped his fingers and 4 men emerged from the shadows, surrounding Eliza. "Now, you're going to sign a statement retracting all your accusations against me. You're going to say you lied, that you stole from me and ran away, that your cowboy friend coerced you into making false claims. And if I refuse, then Mary dies first, then you, then your cowboy when we find him." Eliza's chin lifted. "You seem very confident that you hold all the cards, Mr. Reeves." "I always do," he replied smugly. "Not this time." Eliza's voice rang out clearly. "Now, Beau." The warehouse windows shattered as Jenkins fired the first shot from his position across the street. Beau crashed through a side door, gun blazing. Sheriff Donovan and 2 deputies burst through the main entrance, having been positioned there after Beau sought their help. The ensuing fight was chaotic. Reeves' men, caught by surprise, still managed to return fire. Beau tackled Eliza to the ground as bullets flew overhead. Jenkins' rifle cracked again and again from outside. Mary screamed through her gag as a stray bullet splintered the chair next to her head. When it was over, 2 of Reeves' men were dead, 1 wounded, and 1 had surrendered. Reeves himself had tried to flee but was brought down by a shot from Jenkins that shattered his good knee. "Samuel Reeves," Sheriff Donovan said as his deputies handcuffed the groaning man. "You're under arrest for kidnapping, attempted murder, fraud, and about a dozen other charges I'll think of on the way to the jail." As Reeves was dragged away, cursing and threatening, Beau helped Eliza to her feet. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she breathed, then turned to untie Mary, who collapsed into her arms, sobbing with relief. The following weeks were a whirlwind of testimonies, legal proceedings, and newspaper articles. Judge Wilson, true to his word, ensured that Reeves faced the full force of the law. Other victims came forward, not just from Denver but from as far away as San Francisco and St. Louis. By the time the case concluded, Reeves had been sentenced to 20 years in prison, his network of accomplices either jailed or fled, and his assets seized. Through it all, Beau remained steadfastly at Eliza's side, his quiet strength a constant source of support. When it was finally over, when the last testimony had been given and the last paper signed, they stood together on the steps of the Denver courthouse, both feeling the weight lifting from their shoulders. "It's done," Eliza said softly. "Really done." "Yes," Beau agreed, taking her hand in his. "And now we can think about what comes next." They returned to the ranch as summer gave way to fall, the aspen trees turning gold against the evergreen backdrop of the mountains. The land had a different feel now, not just Beau's refuge, but a home for both of them. On a crisp October evening, as the sunset painted the western sky in shades of pink and gold, Beau took Eliza riding to a ridge overlooking the valley where his cattle grazed. A small creek wound through the pasture, glinting like silver in the fading light. "I come here to think," Beau said as they sat side by side on a fallen log. "When the world gets too complicated, this place reminds me of what matters." Eliza leaned against his shoulder, content in the peaceful moment. "It's beautiful." "Not as beautiful as you," Beau said, turning to face her. "Eliza, these past months have been the most important of my life. Finding you again after all these years, it feels like a second chance I never thought I'd get." "I feel the same," she whispered, her eyes shining. Beau took both her hands in his. "I don't want to waste this chance." "I love you, Eliza. I think I've loved you since we were children, and I know I'll love you for the rest of my days." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gold ring with a single diamond that caught the last rays of sunlight. "This was my mother's. I've kept it all these years, waiting for the right woman to give it to. Will you marry me, Eliza? Make this ranch our home together." Tears spilled onto Eliza's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Beau Blackwood, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that held all the promise of their future together. They were married that December in the small church in Dry Creek, with Jenkins giving the bride away and Mrs. Morley sniffling happily in the front pew. Judge Wilson came from Denver for the occasion, as did many of the women who had testified against Reeves, women who were now building new lives of their own, free from fear and exploitation. As they spoke their vows, snow began to fall outside, dusting the world in white. Beau and Eliza barely noticed, lost in each other's eyes as they pledged their love and lives to one another. The years that followed brought joy and challenges in equal measure. The harsh winter of '78 nearly devastated their herd. The railroad came through the valley in '79, bringing new opportunities and competition. Their first child, a son they named James after Beau's father, was born in the spring of 1880, followed by a daughter, Sarah, 2 years later. Through it all, they faced life side by side, their love deepening with each passing season. The ranch prospered under their joint care, becoming one of the most respected in Colorado territory. Eliza, drawing on her own experiences, established a fund to help women in difficult circumstances, providing temporary shelter at the ranch and opportunities for education and employment. On the 10th anniversary of their meeting in Dry Creek, Beau surprised Eliza with a small leather-bound book. "What's this?" she asked, opening it to find blank pages. "Our story," Beau explained. "For our children and their children after them, so they'll know how two people who were separated by fate found each other again against all odds." Eliza smiled, touching the pages reverently. "It's a good story." "The best," Beau agreed, drawing her into his arms, "and we're still writing it every day." As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in the same colors as the day he proposed, Beau and Eliza stood on the porch of the home they had built together, watching their children play in the yard. From the simple act of $2 spent in a dusty frontier town had grown a life richer than either could have imagined, a testament to the power of second chances, courage, and a love strong enough to overcome any obstacle. "I love you, Beau Blackwood," Eliza whispered, resting her head against his chest. "And I love you, Eliza Blackwood," he replied, his arms tightening around her. "Yesterday, today, and all our tomorrows."